Computer. Okay. Does everybody hear me? Hello. Dirt bake last week. Uh, oh, get this to stay. All right. Welcome, everybody. I don't know where we left off with in our last chapter. So we're just gonna, it was a few paragraphs at the end. So we're gonna start the next chapter, holiness. Okay. And this is gonna go a lot quicker. And the more, in my opinion, the more you learn and the more you study the 13 Petalled Rose, the more you understand why he put this in this order. But whatever, in any case, um, things are gonna be able to, you're gonna be able to connect more dots, although you probably could have just started the book from this chapter, but still it gives you a great background that, like we said, broadens your mind and gives more texture to, or different texture to even this chapter, which is a lot less dense. Was that somebody said last week? They're very dense. Oh, it wasn't, it was somebody else.
Wait,
Last,
so
not
we're,
2 weeks ago.
we're
Sorry.
not going to finish the end of this chapter?
It- it- um, we just had a couple of paragraphs over there.
So,
No,
I don't know.
Where were we? Because
right,
I couldn't,
right,
we could go
15,
back.
50, 58, 59,
They want
a
this.
few pages.
They want dense. Okay, so
I've
what,
asked
because I was
before,
looking over it and I couldn't
it's hard for
remember,
me to translate from this over, you know
I
what?
couldn't remember where it
It's this
was.
paragraph.
Right, 5,
I
6
think
Just
it was.
consciousness. Okay, so let's, hey,
Six full pages.
Yeah.
we went through the sphere road, right? Give me this book here for a second. Let me see, because it'll make me easier.
Sorry, sorry.
Oh. So we didn't get it. It was me. 1 second.
Your soul went to it.
Yeah, no, I actually went through it. That's consciousness. Okay, very good. Yes, because we started talking about the levels of the soul, and we went up to the highest level of revelation and prophecy, which kind of just put that in the back of your mind because in the chapter of holiness, he touches upon that when he talks about holy people and differences in levels of holiness. So it does, things do connect, and they will connect even in more, less dense ways. Okay. So let's go on with our chapter. I'm sorry. So we're going to finish this chapter of, it's not worlds, it's
The soul
the
of
soul of man. Right. Thus, consciousness, assuming ever new identification along the lifeline of the soul. I'm in the right place, right?
Mhm.
Right. Is the way of man's ascent to perfection. Let me read that again. This consciousness, assuming ever new identification along the lifeline of the soul, is the way of man's ascent to perfection. Um, this is not, you know, I don't know if you went to every culture and every society in the world and asked them, what is man's perfection? What is the definition of perfection? For sure, with the Greek philosophers that are the underpinnings of, Western civilization, for sure it would be what he's saying over here. It is consciousness, maybe probably even in large, areas of the East. But I don't know if everybody agrees that that is the ultimate man's perfection. Okay, so this is a very this is you. I'm not going to say unique, but it's important.
That's
It's
something to strive for, perfection,
yes. Or is it even something to strive for? You're asking?
right? Because he made us imperfect,
I'm not saying you get the perfection,
right?
but you can strive for it. There's a difference between saying that you're going to reach the goal, but what
We
is
learned
the
in
ultimate goal?
dental school, and if you strive for perfection, you go mad. But if you strive for excellence, you may succeed.
It says in the Medrash, it says Tov hu yetzer hara. I'm sorry, Tov is hu yetzer tov. Tov ma'od hu yetzer hara.
Mhm.
And then
Or
there are opinions that said hu malach hamavet. It's the
Mhm.
angel of death.
perfection is the enemy of the good.
Exactly. And Rabbi Shandas has some whole essay about that. It's beautiful. But striving for perfection, what your goal is and what you're working on, what is your avoda, what is your work in your life, is deeper and more consciousness. And that's what we were talking about before, because those are the levels of the soul of more and more transparency and understanding and consciousness of God's light in the world and how it's creating the world. So therefore, your avoda is to go up higher and higher in the levels of consciousness. So you're striving for perfect. I don't know if you ever reach a point, but you know, but definitely that's the avoda. That's the work that's the toil. Here he goes. The more one rises, the closer one comes to the realization of the highest purpose of one's being. Again, over and over again, he's saying this. We're also going to get to this in the chapter of holiness and the chapter of Torah. It's always going back, and this is what we finished up last night. I remember always going back to the sense that you're going back to yourself. You're going back. It's not something you're not chasing something external to yourself. You're going deeper into yourself, right? Highest purpose of one's being, your own highest purpose, that is the ultimate to get to. To be sure, only very few people are ever privileged to reach these highest levels, and even when they do reach them, it is not to remain, but to experience an occasional flash of awareness of the higher existence within. The only one who really actually stayed there was Moshe Rabbeinu. That was his uniqueness. It's funny. I don't know if I told the story, but there was once I was able to merit to have Rabbi Stadlitz come to my town in New Jersey for a Shabbaton. It was exactly in the Parsha, at the end of the Parsha, talking about Miriam, talking badly, so to speak, about Moshe. And so, on the third meal at the Sephardi shul in my town, the title was, they wanted to speak about Shalom Bayit and Moshe Rabbeinu. What can you learn about Shalom Bayit? What can you learn about peace in the home? Usually that refers to husband and wife, but in Bichlal, in general, the whole family, having peace in the home, and Moshe Rabbeinu. And Rabbi Steinsaltz, the first thing he said, it's so typical Rabbi Steinsaltz, he said, you can't learn anything from Moshe Rabbeinu regarding his personal, activities and how he functioned. And that's exactly what the Torah is saying explicitly. So you were not going to learn Shalom Bayit from Moshe Rabbeinu and how he acted. Throw that out the window. You're not allowed to. Why? Because he is on this exactly. He's not just having flashes of this highest level. That's where he lives, so to speak. That's his abode. That's his home.
That must have been an interesting talk then, if that's how he started.
He started and then he said, but I'll tell you about Shalom Bayit. I'll tell you what I've learned and what I tell my students, he said. But we're definitely not learning from Moshe Rabbeinu. Do not try this at home. Exactly. I think he said that. He said that was the slogan. Do not try this at home. Exactly. Very good. Only the greatest of men achieve this level where the self exists in terms of consciousness in the world of emanation, going up to this level of Chaya or Yechida, Chaya. The rest of mankind lives on the level of the world of action, or scarcely above it, inch above it. They can rise a little, if indeed they manage to do so at all, only by virtue of their choice, their deeds, and sincerest efforts. That is hard work. There is my mother, God forbid, my wife once asked Rabbi Steinsaltz, she was involved in a certain situation, and she's like, how do you move the world? Or how do you even move yourself? And he quoted, we were cleaning for Pesach in our bookshelves. So I showed my son, which unfortunately, there's a book there that he quoted, Rabbi Steinsaltz, and we have the book by Stephen, oh my God, Bonnet. He won the Pulitzer Prize. What's his? Yeah, right. That's his name, and he has a story there called "The Devil and." What I can't remember the name of the story. I'm so sorry. I have to look it up. But anyway, in that story, the person asks the devil basically, how does one how does one improve or something like that? And the devil says 1 inch at a time. And Rabbi Shans looked at her and said 1 inch at a time. It's little. Then he said it's like he used the muscle of a caterpillar. And a caterpillar eats just a little bit until it turns into this thing, then it goes in a cocoon and turns into a butterfly. But it's little by little by little. Anyway, but this is what he's a very, inching above into yourself. Since the soul is of the inner essence of the Sphirot, because the Sphirot are the DNA, spiritual DNA for anything in this world, and the soul is the ultimate spiritual essence that we have, it must necessarily manifest the structures of the 10 Sphirot in real life. For the 10 Sphirot are the instruments of the supreme omnipotence. Thus, when man lives in a state of perfection, without any distortion of his being, his soul and the relations between his soul and his body reflect the whole world and the 10 supreme Sphirot. And he can say, like it says in Job and Eov, let it yet in my flesh shall I see God. Now, by the way, this pasuk is used a lot in Kabbalah to as the underpinning and the fundament, the foundation of trying to understand how God relates to the world, right? And it's basically they use this in Eov as look how you relate to yourself or how you're built as a human being. It also is premised on the idea of kibet tselem Elokim. That's the point in the image of God. So whatever we have without, but this is without distortions. So man's body is basically how it's set up is the ultimate way of how divine plenty comes into the world. And the sphirot also are corresponds to the physical body of a human being. Does that make sense what I just said? Take it and understand it. He's going to go into it a little bit with more detail. Man in his purity should be able to perceive the whole order of relations between God and the world, and the order of relations within this Sfirot, as this is reflected in the microcosm of his human existence, just like he's saying what Job is saying over there. If you look at a human being and understanding how it relates to the world and how it relates to itself and what it is and how it's set up, then you can understand how God relates to the world as well, and how he what kind of pipeline, so to speak, what kind of structure he built in order to bring down his divine plenty in order to create the world. Just as they do in the higher world, the 10 Sefirot exist in the human soul, and from their mutual interrelations are derived and manifested all the broad span of thoughts, feelings, and experiences of man. Again, because the kernel, the DNA, is the 10 Sefirot, which are reflected in the human being's body. And they're manifesting in many different ways and creating and manifesting through the span of thoughts, feelings, and experiences of man. Thus, so what happens with a human being? How does it start? The first three sfirot assert the aspects of pure consciousness. That's how everything starts. That's how everything begins. Any type of relationship or relating to something outside of yourself, or even to yourself. But let's go with outside of yourself. You as a human being relating to outside of yourself is always going to start, first of all, with pure consciousness. Chachma. Chachma we're going to get to, but the idea is some kind of awareness or consciousness or wisdom or understanding. All of the above. I just said a whole bunch of words, but each one of them is at a certain point in the order of what comes before what comes before the other. Just a second. Oh, okay. So we have Chachma expressing the power of original light, is that which distinguishes and creates and is the basis of intuitive grasp. So let's read that again. Chachma, expressing the power of original light, is that which distinguishes and creates and is the basis of intuitive grasp. It's the first kernel of understanding. It's the first point of consciousness and awareness of anything.
What is the word?
So the power of original light. Right, I was about to go into there. Right. Light here means that before nothing was distinguishable because it was in dark. Light here means that there's a certain type of understanding that there's something there. Understanding that there's something there. You see it, you don't even understand what you saw. That's why it's usually compared to this concept of lightning or a flash, right? Or light, but the light bulb that goes out, on and then out, like it gets right. Um, Rabbi Steinsaltz writes in his commentary on the Tanya and other places, he says this whole order of relating to things and understanding things and receiving things is happening all the time, but very quickly. So when can you notice the different levels in the order of receiving and understanding something, or even having an awareness of something? Is, for instance, when you encounter a very difficult issue that you have to toil on understanding it. And then everything gets slowed down, and then you can discern the differences we're going to talk about between, for instance, Chachma and then Bina and Da'at. He said, for instance, a very difficult Tosfot that you're learning. But even better, he said, when we all remember, I mean, I barely remember, right? But now I'm doing it with my kids. So now it's even harder, right? When they're doing difficult problems especially in geometry. It's all geometry, right? And you're sitting there and you're looking at it, and you have to look at the angles, and some people see it right away, right? Like you have to look at it in a different way, and like, and then all of a sudden it's like you saw something. When you're toiling, when you're invested in very difficult, not very difficult, but things that you have to like really invest your intellectual powers into understanding, these parts of the process get slowed down. And you can start discerning, wow, there's such a thing really as chachma that's not connected to the next part. And chachma is this original, like that all of a sudden you see something, but I can't even explain to you what I saw. But I know that I got it. I know that I saw it. It's something, I saw it. I saw the I remember this geometric, shape in a way I didn't see before, and something clicked. And now I just have to sit and like, we're going to get to Bina. Okay. This is constantly happening with us, but it's not so hard. So we're constantly looking at things, absorbing them, getting flashes of light, but the Bina and the dot are coming very quick, are happening very quickly. The putting it into a category and relating it to something that is familiar to myself, it's happening very, very quickly, right? I think I read somewhere that this is what people deal with, doctors who deal with people who with stroke victims, because it depends which part of the brain was affected. And then, you can, I remember my father saying, for instance, that uh, um, they asked him, and he didn't know, this wasn't his field, but he was involved with people who were dealing with, when the Rebbe had his stroke, for instance, is he understanding things? Right? There was the big, you know, uh, 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 you know, they were singing Yechia Ronenu even then, right? About him being Mashiach. And you see him like shaking, right? And some people said he's encouraging it. And other people were like saying, I don't think he understands what's being said. He just hears a rhythm. And I remember my father saying, I hope he doesn't understand. Because if you have a person like that who has used his brain so much, and they could tell, by the way, they when they were whatever, all of us, probably the most frustrating thing would be is when you do divide up and make blockages between the chachma and the bina and the dot. Because imagine you're receiving things, and but you don't have the ability to put it in its place and understand it. It could be maddening. It could kill you. You can go crazy, you know? So what the Kabbalah here is doing with the way we receive things and understand things, this is the same way that God relates to the world. First, there is a revelation of Chachma. And then there's going to be Bina, that we're going to go to the next things. He's going down. We're going, same type of thing. We're taking something in. Okay? We're taking something in. Um, and all these different building blocks, that's the word I was looking for. The building blocks of the Sfirot are going to end up as a thought, an emotion, the way you relate to that with all the different, it's all going through the same process, but a little bit differently in each one. It's like the mix, it's like putting the same ingredients into a cholent, but each cholent is different, each emotion is different, each feeling different, it's every time because the measurements are a little bit different each time. Okay. But they're 10 basic ingredients in general. So the first one is Chachma. And the Chachma is expressing the power of original light is that which distinguishes and creates and is the basis of intuitive grasp. Okay. Then you have Bina, expressing the analytical and synthetic power of the mind, builds and comprehends forms and probes the meaning of that which comes from the sphere of Chachma. So the Bina is like taking it in. I'm wondering why it's a synthetic power of the mind, which is interesting. Why do you guys think he said synthetic power of the mind?
Synthesizing.
Synthesize. It's not, right, Yocheved?
Mm. It's a blending, a synthesis.
Right. So it's not using, I thought at first it was using, whatever, that's not, it's not like fake, synthetic. It's more about the blending over here, right? Right. Express it. So you're taking all these flashes and you are analyzing them very quickly. Okay. Remember, this is all happening, if there aren't any distortions, right? And usually distortions are like we talked about the birds. Remember the birds pecking at the pipes going through. So the same thing can happen with a person, but this isn't the purest form. We're talking about going up into remember your soul, your consciousness. But this is how consciousness is created. He's talking about right now. Okay. And that expresses, this is great, the crystallization of awareness in terms of conclusions and the abstract ascertaining of facts is that which enables consciousness to make a transition from one form of existence to another, thereby ensuring its continuity. It's a big word, that's a big sentence, but it's very, very well done, in my opinion. I'll say it again, expressing the crystallization of awareness in terms of conclusions and the abstract ascertaining of facts is that which enables consciousness to make a transition from one form of existence to another, thereby ensuring its continuity. This is very important. By the way, has anybody ever learned Mishle, gone through it, even just read it like Hebrew and English just a bit? What would you say if you summarized the vast majority of what Shlomo Melech is saying in Mishle?
Well, the one thing it hardly has at all is Proverbs. It's called Proverbs.
Right, but what are the proverbs?
But they're not really Proverbs like you would think, like Benjamin Franklin's
No,
Proverbs.
These are more because a lot of them are just straightforward lessons
Mhm.
and advice. It's a good question. You're right. It's not so, but there are some proverbs there, but most of it, the vast majority of it,
Contrast.
is contrasting what to what. Very good.
The Chacham and the Tzaddik, the Ksiel and
No, exactly. First of all, two things. The righteous person, you're right, and the evil person. And he's always equating, almost always, the righteous person with the wise. And the wise is the one that takes advice, by the way, always the one that takes advice. So it's like it's almost it's like 95% of the sukkah. It gets maddening if you're reading it because it's like over and over again in many different ways. That's why it's Proverbs, right? He's trying to say it in different ways, but contrasting the righteous slash wise, the one who's seeker of wisdom, right? Slash receiver receiver. You're also a seeker, but you're also a receiver. Interesting. Compared to the evil person, the harmful person, he talks a lot about harm that you're going to do to others and do to yourself, slash, slash fool, the seal, the one who does not pursue wisdom, does not pursue, and I'm going to use a different word to connect it to why am I saying this whole thing, to connect it to here.
And also the person is very easily influenced to the
Right.
wrong side.
Right. But I want to say one thing here that's going to connect it to what we're saying over here. It is wisdom, definitely wisdom. And he does say explicitly there Torah sometimes, like looking for Torah in its life. But I think he's talking, and it does, he said explicit consciousness. The one who doesn't avoid the wise person, righteous person, seeker, receiver, all in the first category, see keeping looking for deeper consciousness, deeper understanding of and awareness, consciousness, awareness, understanding, wisdom. I don't think there he's talking, if you look at it, he's not necessarily, he's also talking about just simple wisdom, understanding things and gaining knowledge. But I think that's a side, if you look at it carefully, and not so carefully, if you just take a quick look at it, he's talking not necessarily of, not so much about a person who is gaining knowledge, like facts. That's part of it, because that's a tool through which to raise your consciousness. I don't think it's the end. I think it's a means to an end, the way I read it. But what I'm trying to say is he's describing the same thing here without distortion. A person, and he keeps on saying that because the fool is always the one that distorting. That word is used so much in Mishle. Distortion. You're distorting justice, you're distorting truth, you're distorting things, and it's only going to harm you because it's not correct. It's just going to cause you to stumble and fall. It's a lot of what Shlomo Melech is saying there. Same thing here. Again, without distortion, a person who goes deeper into the consciousness and deeper and allows for these pipelines to stay clean and correct, then you will reach the higher levels of your own self. Do you understand what I'm saying? That makes sense a little bit? It goes two ways over here. So let's go on with the clean, correct pipeline. So we had the Chachma Bina Vadat, and Dat is able to take that flash, that knowledge, that object of knowledge of seeing something outside of yourself. It was analyzed and categorized, and Dat takes it and crystallizes it and makes it more transmittable to the parts that you're feeling and doing, which is going to get to the next set of sfirot. Okay? So let's go on. Then following these are the three sfirot of the higher emotions. Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferet. Chesed as grace and love is this keeps on, is the inclination toward things. Oh, sorry, just right. Inclination towards things, the desire for or attraction to beings, the outgoing flow and opening up to the world, that which gives of itself, whether in terms of will or affection or relation. Why is he using all these words? Remember, we talked about that the Kabbalah had to try to find a word that encompasses as much as possible everything that he just described and more. Because all of these things are included in the word that Kabbalah said. We're going to just name it chesed, because that's the best word we can use for all of these things. So Rishon is just unpacking it. So let's say it again. Desire for, attraction, outgoing flow. It's a sense of like openness. That's the first chesed. In emotional jargon, okay, in emotional, if we use emotion, that would be ahava, love. You know, you've understood something, you've analyzed, or you saw something, received it, you analyzed it, you crystallized it, right? That will basically automatically cause you to be attracted to it. To, wow, this is something that I want to give myself to. I feel close to it. Okay. What happened with, hold on. Um, oh, Yocheved, where is she? Wow, you caught on to, yes, Hasidus goes great. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but definitely. Yeah. The answer to your question is yes. She asked, is this connected with the understanding of the contemplation when we say Shema? Absolutely. In Hasidut Chabad, the whole contemplation of Shema is about this, always. So, and he goes at great length over and over again, unpacking Shema Yisrael, Baruch Shem, V'ahavta. Yes, absolutely. And the V'ahavta is definitely a result of, he shows how the Chachma Bina Vadat in Shema Yisrael. It's a contemplation, a deep contemplation that causes Ahava. But then, like Rabbi Steinzal says, opens up to the sphere of Gvura, or strength, right? Ratzo v'shov, running towards and then returning back, right? Gvura is thus an inward withdrawal of forces, a concentration of power which provides an energy source for hate, fear, and terror, as well as for justice, restraint, and control. All of these words he's using because what does Gvura do? It's the contraction and the bringing back, right? So this is the flow. We have the Chachma Bina Badat, right? Then you have the going towards, and then you get too close to the sun, so to speak, right? S-U-N, right? And you like take back and you contract. And it's like we sometimes we call it fear, sometimes we call it awe. Like I understood something, I run it, whoa, but this is big, right? And you have to like prepare, but this we always have to remember also, I'm just going to say something about Gvura. It's interesting that why would you would think if Gvura is like to be a Gibor, to be strong, you would think that that's a person that is expressing something outward, right?
Controlling. Yeah.
It's because true strength comes from concentration of power. True strength comes from any kind of concentration, right? Ezohu Gibor, Dafka HaKovesh et Yitzro, the one that is going inward, conquers his, or contracts, or inhibits, or limits his Yetzer, right? It's interesting. It doesn't say Kovesh et Yitzro Hara. So many people make a mistake about. Rav Dov, I said this story already. I remember saying it. I'll say it again. That Rav Dov Zinger, the Rosh Yeshiva of Makor Chaim, he used to make us sing that song. You know that song, B'tein banu, yetzer, right? You should give me, please. It's a prayer. Please give me yetzer tov, a good inclination, lovdecha, to serve you with love and fear, etc. And he made us in yeshiva sing it differently. He made us sing v'tein banu, yetzer, yetzer, oh. Give me some kind of yetzer. Tov lavdacha b'emet uvir. It's good to serve you. Because this yetzer, inclination, is not necessarily, first of all, you need it. You need some kind of inclination, some desire, right? Now, the desire can be to good or to bad. But let's start with, I'm just saying this on a practical level. Once we had a day where, I don't know what happened, but there was a large gap and teachers couldn't come or something like that. And so we were in yeshiva and we all went to sleep. And the next day, Rav Dov came in. He was so upset. And he was like, if I had an hour to myself, I have a list in my drawer of things that I would do. Like I'm just dying to do. And you guys have no Yetzer at all. It's like, you can't have a Yetzer Tov if you don't have a Yetzer. If you don't have a desire burning up inside of you to do something, then you can't channel it to either good or bad. It has to start with some kind of yetzer. What's interesting, why am I saying this? Is because that's gvura, koveshet, it's gibor, koveshet yitzro. It's not saying the one that conquers his yetzer hara. It's conquering his yetzer.
Oh, but someone who's courageous, he's also afraid, but he doesn't let the fear get.
Very interesting. I never thought of that. I never thought of that. So any type of yetzer, you are in control of it. Very interesting. Very interesting. So you're saying there's a yetzer of fear, and I'm going to be in control of it. Interesting. Okay, never thought of that way. Okay, but anyway, it's a withdrawal of forces. This is the okay. Tiferet, so chesed, gvura, tiferet, is harmony and compassion as well as beauty, being a synthesis, again, that word, right? Synthesizing, or a balancing of the higher powers of attraction or repulsion, and leads to moral as well as to aesthetic acceptance of the world. It's balance, but not balance that is just like a combination and sum of the chesed and gvura before. The next section is it creates something new. The sum is greater than what does it say? The sum is greater.
The total is
The whole of
greater
its
than the
part.
sum of the parts.
The whole is greater than the sum of its. That's what I was getting right. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Tiferet's creating something new with that balance that it puts mixture between the two. Okay.
So we have a pattern over here, right? Of the three, of each group of three, the third one.
Always,
Synthesized.
always. Yes. We have 1, 2, 3. In fact, you see in his book, doesn't do it in this. It's compared to, does he have it in here?
Right, left, no,
What?
right, left.
Yeah, but it's compared to the body of the person.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has the diagram in here. He has it in another book. But you'll see it in the Kabbalistic books. They put it in the diagram is at the head. You have the right side, the left side, and then over here, then you have the right hand, the left hand, and then in the middle, the heart, which is compassion, and a mixture of both. And then you're gonna have the right, left, you're right. And then we're gonna, so let's say over here, I want to go a little bit quicker with this. From these, we proceed to the three sferot that act directly on the actual world of experience. Because before we talked about that the chesed, gvura, tiferet are the higher emotions, and then it gets to the ones that drive the what's it called? Manifestation of this creature that we're creating. I'm thinking about like we're creating something here, and it's constantly happening, like I'm saying, right? Like I said. Netzach Hod Yesod. Netzach is the will to overcome, the profound urge to get things done. Hod, in striving to achieve and attain that which is desired, is also the power to repudiate the obstacles that rise from reality and live like Gevura. It's compared, right? But it's a different type of Gevura. And to persevere. It's also the power to repudiate the obstacles that rise from reality and to persevere. Yesod is the power of connection, the capacity and the will to build bridges, make contacts, and relate to others, especially in the way this is done with teacher, father, and other figures of meaning and authority. Okay, it's hard to explain this in what we just created, but it's the ability to take what we just created and to transmit it to the next thing. Finally, the sphere of Malchut is a realization or living through of this potential in the essential being. It is her transition from soul to outer existence, to thought and to deed. It's a taking the whole thing and to creating something that is applicable. It's the receptacle of everything, and it's there. It also affects the transmutation of consciousness back to Keter, the first and highest of the Sfirot, which is also the essence of will and contains in itself all the higher powers that activate the soul from above. I don't know if do I want to go into this? No, we're just going to go on. I can talk about this a little bit, how it's always a constant circle going around and around. It's like when you created a certain thing, emotion, thought, feeling, relation to the outer world, that in turn then affects the higher part of you, which is your desire and will, and starts the whole process again. So it's constantly going round and around. These basic powers combine and work together. These 10 sfirot, always right? Two or more of them bring about an event or activate something and together create the thoughts and feelings of man in all their enormous subtlety and complexity. Thus, every single thought, emotion, or action is a result of the combination of forces of one or another of all of the Sphirot, every compounding of which expresses a particular essence, being, or creation in the world. Okay. The soul of man functions through its instrument or vessel, which is the body. Through it and with it, the soul thinks, perceives, feels, and acts. Through it and by it, the soul has to fulfill its double function in reality. Didn't we do this? We didn't do this. Oh, maybe I really, really reviewed this so many times that I'm trying to like, okay. We did talk about though the two-way street last time. I think we talked about that. No? Uh yes, we did. Yes, we did. We talked about the purpose of the soul coming into the body. And we talked about that at the same time that the soul affects the body and gives it life force. And we talked about at the level of nefesh, the lowest level of the soul, right? That just gives it the basic vitality and life force. We also talked about the fact that the body affects the soul. And the combination, and that's why the soul comes down here, because it gives it a different perspective on its own self and of God. Okay. Um, so he's saying, but the soul is in the body. It has to fulfill its double function in reality. First, it has to perform a certain task in the process of perfecting the outer world, or at least that part of the world to which it's destined. And second, its task is to raise itself. But these tasks are not necessarily separate. They are accomplished simultaneously. For the physical world contains in itself a higher essence, higher forces, in which even though hidden and distorted, there exist elements of the original divine formlessness. Are you with me? This is really important over here. This is really important what he's saying. This is very Jewish. This is going to be uniquely Jewish. And we talked about this over here. Dafka, especially, specifically in this physical world, where it's the godly light is the most hidden and the most distorted, Dafka in the physical world exists some kind of higher essence of God Himself that doesn't exist in the higher worlds. It's based on this concept of that in order to give life force to something which is which the life force is so hidden, the only way to do that is to use a light that is of higher quality than compared to when that light is creating, or another type of light is creating something that's more transparent. More energy, so to speak, has to be expended to create something that hides God more than when a light that is creating something that's hiding God less.
Example.
For example, what do you mean, for example? Another example? Like an example in real life?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the principle is that something more valuable
Lower.
is
Higher, a certain higher quality goes lower.
hidden.
Yes.
More.
More energy is So I'll explain in a different way, I think. That might explain it. Again, we're going to go back to the major question that's underlying most of Kabbalah, especially Chabad Hasidus, is not if there's a God, but how is there a world? If God is so great, how is there a world? And so I'm taking this very quickly. How is there a world? And we talked about this in the world chapter. How is there a world? By God hiding Himself. And that is a novelty. That is almost like expending energy on not revealing myself. Okay? I'm putting more effort into being a gibor, contracting my powers, hiding myself, not showing myself, so that there is, in a certain sense, so there's revelation, but so that there's hiddenness, so you don't see me.
Like stealth. To do stealth is very difficult, very expensive.
Right. To be more hidden. Good. Okay, there you go. Right. A lot more energy is expended in a certain sense. I can say, if you want other examples, sometimes it's a lot harder to shut up when you want to say something than to yell something when you really feel something. Takes a lot more inner energy and a higher quality type of spiritual light to make yourself close your mouth and clench your teeth.
Hasidic things that you see someone get insulted and they don't respond.
Right,
You run over to them and ask them for a bracha.
right.
So they hit it.
Perfect.
They hit an apex.
Perfect. Exactly. So the same thing exactly. So we're saying, but the Arizal's Torah was trying to say that the light that creates the lowest things are from a higher source than the light that are creating things that have more revelation or more transparency. It's coming from a higher level. So the soul, that's what he's saying over here. The soul is going down into this world in order to connect and relate to a higher light that it could have existed, that even though you took it out from it's under the Kisei HaKavod, or it's in Gan Eden, and you could talk about from here to tomorrow the great benefits and the great revelation that it has, right? Neshama shanatata b'tahorahi, it's pure, and it's this and it's that. So why are you taking it from there? Why are you putting it? Why are you taking it from such a high place? Because dafka down here, there's a higher light that it can connect to, that it can relate to, that it can have a relationship to. Okay, be with me. Kind of.
Light?
What?
What's the other light?
The other light is when God is creating angels, or as God is creating things that we talked about that are more transparent. That's all.
You said down here, there's a higher light.
Yes. The more hidden, the more the thing hides the light of God, that means it's being created by a higher level of light. That was the whole chiddush of the Arizal. Now, what is the danger of saying like this? And it's historically, practically problematic. What did the Frankists and Shabtai Tzvi do with this? And that's why after the Frankists, especially the mainstream, the regular rabbis who were correct, forbade and had a big problem with people learning the Torah of the Arizal. And that's one of the biggest complaints and oppositions towards Hasidus. They had a point because they said we've been here, done that, and it's dangerous. Because what the Frankists especially said was, where is the most hiddenness of God? Where is the most hiddenness of God? The most hiddenness of God. What?
Furthest away.
Where is the furthest away? Sin. Exactly. Sin. So we're going to sin because we want to redeem the highest sparks of holiness that are there. You understand? That's what they said. You read this in their literature. And that's a conclusion that people make. We're doing this for holy purposes. I'm not doing this to have an orgy. I'm doing it because I'm trying to raise the sparks. You have this with people even today, we're going to these dark places because the highest sparks are there. And how else are we going to redeem those sparks or connect to this highest light that exists there? Nobody's going to do it. This is something we talked about at the beginning, if you remember. Remember we talked about the different ways, the differences of the ways of how the Kabbalistic world looks at the world compared to the halachic world. Now everything starts getting connected. The halachic world, we talked about this. We said, I'm going to go very quickly. The halachic world divides the world into three. The Kabbalistic world divides the world into two. But it's basically using the same terminology. The halachic world divides the world into three because there is something which is mutar, permissible, something which is asur, something that is forbidden, and then there's something that's reshut, just permissible. It's like it's not a gray area. It's do whatever you want to do. Like I'm not telling you, it's not permission, it's not forbidden. It's not. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Made a mistake. Sorry, made a mistake. Sorry. Asur, mitzvah, and mutar. Sorry. Sorry. Mutar is reshut. I'm sorry. Sorry. Same thing. Something that's a mitzvah, right? Which objectively, when you're doing it, there's a whole, we discussed this, a whole discussion about kavana, but whatever it is, eat matzah on Pesach, and you know you're eating matzah, you're doing a mitzvah, right? It's a mitzvah, it's a commandment, do it. Then there's something which is forbidden, eating pork for a Jew, for instance, right? And there's something which is permissible. Kabbalah looks at the world as divided into two. It's a much harsher way. And it looks at as Kedusha, which we're going to get to in the next chapter, holiness, and Sitra Achra, the other side. Included in the Sitra Achra is everything that is Asur and Mutar. We talked about this with the Klippas Noga, if you remember, the Klippa that has a little bit of ray of light, whatever, radiance. We talked about that just a bit, right? Everything that is Kedusha is not necessarily everything that's a mitzvah, but it's everything that is for the sake of heaven. And we're going to talk about holiness in the next chapter. That's the title of the chapter. But everything that's asur and mutar, if it's not consciously done for God, it automatically becomes part of the sitra achra, the other side. Why? Because look at the words. What does asur mean literally? Bound. Very good. What does mutar literally mean? Matir asurim. Unbound, right? But it doesn't mean that goes into kedusha. The difference is that there are sparks you can find. That's the Kabbalah looks at it. That some of them are unbound, so you can do it and release the sparks. Those parts of dealing with physical things, and it's the highest level of. It's a high quality level of light that God's creating that thing with. If you use it for the correct way, you are redeeming that, you are interacting. That's what I was looking for. Interacting with this very high quality light of God's essence, and you're connecting to it. But this is where the Frankists were, I did this whole thing about the Frankists, right? The Frankists, this is where they were mistaken, is that they wanted to go to the deepest, darkest places to reach, right? But it doesn't make a difference. They're asur. Those lights are bound and shackled until God releases them at the end of whenever he does, right? They are shackled. They're unredeemable. Whatever you do. Why? Because he said so. You cannot eat pork unless it's pikuach nefesh, but you as a Jew cannot eat pork, even if you want to redeem for the most highest, you want to redeem the light in it. Okay? You can't. Why? Those sparks that are in it, that are giving it life force, are unredeemable. You can't unextractable. Inextractable. You can't extract it. It's impossible. Okay? Rabbi Steinzel, do you want to tell you? Rabbi Steinzel's Biratanya uses a good example of I have to look it up to make sure I understand exactly what he's saying, but he claims that aluminum, the material aluminum, is found almost in every soil. Says the problem is, so why does it cost money? Probably it's like sand. It's the extraction process is not so simple. You might find something that is completely there, but it's about, can you extract it or not extract it, right? So we're beyond the time over here, so we're gonna have to get up over here. But I just wanted to say, this is what he's saying over here. Its task is to raise itself. I just want to finish that sentence one more time so we remember, right? For the physical world contains that's in itself a higher essence, higher forces in which, even though hidden and distorted, there exist elements of the original divine formlessness. The original is like the essence of God. Let me just finish to the end of this paragraph, if you don't mind. It is with these higher forces that the soul in its work of tikkun or correction is united with these higher forces. And in thus raising a portion of the world, it is also raised and uplifted. because it's connecting with something that was even higher when it existed in Gan Eden. Okay? The relation between body and soul, and altogether between the spirit of things and the corporality, may be expressed by the example of a rider on horseback. A rider is controlling, it guides his steed, can go much farther than he can go on foot. So the soul is taken places, even though it is a lower animal than a human being. But the horse could get you there. How aptly then does the image of the Messiah as a poor man riding on a donkey describe the human predicament, the divine spark born and guiding, the physical donkey bearing up and waiting for guidance and power. Saying a lot of things here which are powerful. So we will finish up this chapter next week. Um, um, and that's it. Hope Yochebed, I saw your comment over here. I'll get to it next time. Okay, fine. All right. Thank you very much.
You very much.
The